Silicon Valley, 1975. A technology revolution is about to begin in the most unexpected place.
Picture a suburban garage in California. Around 30 people, mostly young technology enthusiasts, are gathered around a workbench, looking at a strange gadget made of wires, chips and circuit boards. They call it a personal computer.
Now you have to remember, back then, computers were huge machines that filled entire rooms. They were locked away in big companies and government offices. The idea that a regular person could have a computer in their home, it seemed impossible.
But this group, known as the Homebrew Computer Club, believed differently. They were rebel engineers and programmers who dreamed of making computers available to everyone. They wanted to take the mystery out of this new technology.
Two of the key people in this group were a pair of young men named Steve. Steve Wozniak was a brilliant prankster with a knack for building electronic devices. His friend Steve Jobs was an intense visionary with a way with words. Together, they decided to start a company called Apple Computer. But could these underdogs really change the world?
The future of technology is at a tipping point. Will these misfits and whiz kids revolutionize the world with their dream of a computer in every home? I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emily. Join us as we go back to where it all began. This is By the Victor.
In the garage, there's a sense of excitement as the group discusses ideas and ways to improve this new machine called the Altair 8800.
The Altair is primitive by today's standards. It doesn't have a keyboard or screen, just switches and blinking lights. But to the homebrew members, those flashing lights represent the future.
Steve Wozniak, sporting long hair and a big smile, is already well known in the DIY electronics community. He's only 24 years old, but he's here to show off something special.
A device called a Blue Box that lets you make long-distance phone calls for free. Wozniak and Jobs have even used it to prank call the Pope. Classic computer nerd mischief.
But Woz has something even more impressive to share. He shows the group an add-on for the Altair that allows you to connect a keyboard and screen. Suddenly, the personal computer becomes something you can actually use and interact with.
The group dives in, spending all night writing programs and sharing ideas. They're determined to make computers user-friendly, one piece of hardware at a time.
Not everyone agrees on the goal, though. Some members, like Lee Felsenstein, think the club should focus on using computers to help people, not to make money. But Jobs sees a business opportunity.
Will the homebrew members stay true to their vision? Or will the allure of Silicon Valley riches lead them astray? Time is running out and the stakes are high.
Weeks later, an exhausted Steve Wozniak emerges from the garage. He's been working non-stop to build a computer that he and Jobs can sell to the public.
They call it the Apple I, and they're about to demonstrate it for the first time at the next homebrew meeting. Can these newcomers actually compete with the big computer companies? Or will Apple be just a passing fad?
With the meeting just a month away, Woz and Jobs are in a race against time. They need to find parts, finish the software, and get the Apple I ready for its big debut. The pressure is on.
Will Apple's first computer be a smashing success or a massive flop? Will the homebrew computer hobbyists spark a technological transformation?
Find out the answers to these questions and more after a quick break. Stay tuned to By the Victor. Welcome back to By the Victor, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes with technology's greatest innovators and the stories that drove their success. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emily. In our last segment, we talked about the early days of personal computers in the 1970s and the group of technology enthusiasts called the Homebrew Computer Club, who helped kickstart the PC revolution.
But the journey from garage tinkering to world-changing industry wasn't a straight line. It involved some bold moves and colourful characters. One of the most famous was a guy known as Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch's real name was John Draper. He gave himself the nickname because he figured out that the whistle given away in Captain Crunch cereal boxes could make a special sound. This sound was the same tone used by phone companies to control their networks.
By blowing the whistle into his phone, Captain Crunch could trick the phone system into letting him make free calls, reroute his call around the world, and even listen in on other people's conversations. To early hackers, he was a hero, someone who used his skills to outsmart the big phone companies.
For people like Draper, known as phone freakers, it wasn't about stealing or causing damage. It was about the excitement of exploring technology and seeing how far they could push it. They loved figuring out how systems worked so they could control them in clever ways.
If that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same curiosity that drove the members of the Homebrew Computer Club. Many early computer pioneers, including Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, started out as phone phreakers.
In fact, Woz and Jobs even sought out Cap'n Crunch to learn from the master himself. But for these tech prodigies, phone phreaking was just the starting point.
Let's rewind to 1968. While hippies are celebrating the Summer of Love in San Francisco, a buttoned-up engineer named Douglas Engelbart is about to rock the computer world at a small conference in the city.
Engelbart unveils what's been called the mother of all demos. He shows off a bunch of new inventions that seem like science fiction. There's this weird wooden box called a mouse that lets you point and click on a screen. There's text you can click on to jump to other documents. He calls it hypertext. He even demonstrates video conferencing.
It's like Engelbart has travelled back from the future to give the audience a sneak peek. This demo introduces the world to the modern graphical user interface. Basically, the way we still interact with computers today. In one mind-blowing presentation, Engelbart maps out the future of computing.
But will the big computer companies of the day, like IBM, embrace these radical ideas? Or will it take a new generation of hackers to make this vision a reality? The stage is set for a showdown.
As we move from the 60s into the 70s, there's a new culture emerging that's obsessed with using technology to change people's minds and society itself. They find their inspiration in the Whole Earth Catalogue, a huge book put together by Stuart Brand that's full of tools and ideas.
Brand sees the tech geeks and business people of Silicon Valley as allies of the hippies. He thinks computers are like the new LSD, tools that can expand your mind and that everyone should have access to them.
One of Brand's biggest fans is a long-haired radical named Lee Felsenstein. He takes these ideas and puts them into action by starting one of the first public computer centres. He spreads the hacker message at Homebrew Club meetings.
But the idealistic, share-and-share-like spirit of Homebrew is about to run into the realities of the business world. A new computer called the Altair 8800 is generating a huge buzz, and dollar signs are starting to appear in people's eyes.
Will the Homebrew hackers be able to stick to their goal of using technology to empower people? Or will the promise of Silicon Valley startup riches tempt them to abandon their ideals?
The personal computer is about to hit the mainstream, ready or not. But what will this machine represent? A tool for liberation or a way for corporations to tighten their grip?
From free-thinking hacker communes to corporate boardrooms, the fight for the future of the PC is coming to a head.
Will it be the boy wonders of Apple who shape the future? Or will a group of Berkeley revolutionaries keep the dream of digital democracy alive? There's only one way to find out. Keep listening.
The stakes are rising in the Valley of Heart's Delight. You're listening to By the Victor. Get comfortable and stay tuned. Welcome back to the thrilling conclusion of our series on the birth of the personal computer. If you thought the stakes were high before, just wait until you hear what's next. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emily. When we last left off, the ideals of the Homebrew Computer Club were about to clash with the harsh realities of the business world. Everyone was wondering, will the PC revolutionaries compromise their principles for a shot at the big time?
At the heart of this tug-of-war was Stuart Brand, a prominent figure in the counterculture movement. He saw computers as the new LSD. Not the drug, but tools for expanding the mind and changing society.
Brand championed what he called the hacker ethic. This was the belief that information should be freely available, that we shouldn't blindly trust authority, and that power shouldn't be too concentrated. For a while, it seemed like these ideas would guide the PC revolution.
But as the 1980s arrived, things started to change. Personal computers were becoming a huge business, and Apple was at the forefront. Their Apple II computer was popular with hobbyists, but their new machine, the Macintosh, was something else entirely. It was designed for the average consumer.
The Macintosh was user-friendly and easy to operate, but you couldn't tinker with it like you could with earlier models. It was the beginning of the appliance computer era, and it seemed like the hacker dream was fading.
But the homebrew spirit didn't die out completely. It lived on in things like the open-source software movement, early online bulletin board systems, and eventually the creation of the World Wide Web. Each new generation of technologists would have to carry the torch forward, using digital tools to empower people rather than control them.
And let's be real, even though Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak became business tycoons, they were still hackers at their core. As Apple grew into a corporate giant, they still celebrated the crazy ones, the rebels and misfits who think outside the box.
So in a way, the hacker ethos is like the cockroach of the tech world. It's always there in the background, ready to come out and shake things up when you least expect it.
If there's one thing we can learn from the story of the PC, it's that you can never count out the weirdos and geniuses. Just when you think the story is over, they have a way of changing the narrative in surprising ways.
And that, folks, is the enduring lesson of the PC revolution. No matter how much money and influence flow through Silicon Valley, there will always be a place for the misfits and visionaries who put people before profit.
So here's to the next generation of hackers. May they never lose their hunger, their boldness, and their commitment to fighting for a better technological future. If a scrappy group of hobbyists in a garage can change the world once,
then who knows what the troublemakers of tomorrow might achieve? The only way to find out is to keep the hacker spirit alive in all its messy, idealistic glory.
Wow, what a journey this has been. From humble beginnings in Menlo Park garages to the international stage, the history of the personal computer is a tale of unlikely heroes, unintended consequences, and the constant tension between ideals and business interests.
Thank you for joining us on this epic 3-part odyssey through tech history. We hope it's left you energized, intrigued, and eager for more stories from the digital frontier.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Daniel. Never forget, the future belongs to the misfits, the rebels, the square pegs in the round holes. So keep on hacking, dreaming, and fighting for a better tomorrow.
See you next time, digital warriors. You've been listening to By the Victor.